already got our service charities, regimental charities, corps charities, and those are hugely important and play their role. But they're not really designed to meet the needs of a specific group who served in a particular campaign. The statistics about the service in Afghanistan are remarkable. You know, there's 150,000 of us who served in the campaign in Afghanistan. That's servicemen and women from all three services, but of course it's also civil servants as well. And we wanted to be inclusive. We wanted to make this about not just veterans themselves, but of course the bereaved, the families who, even if they hadn't lost or suffered as a result of casualties, often felt the effects of repeated tours. I mean, lots of people did multiple tours, but we marched as a contingent. I think it was 60 of us. I was there as well at the Cenotaph last year. And that really drew people's attention to what we're doing. And we've had extraordinary support and interest. The campaign didn't end in a clear victory. And so, you know, we don't celebrate defeats. We don't celebrate indeterminate strategic outcomes. You know, there's a reason that we named Waterloo Station Waterloo Station. The French have named, you know, their stations Austerlitz. They name it after victories. So, in some respects, we've got a harder job to do because there isn't a clear public view on we did this, we won, great, we can celebrate it. 92% of those veterans fear that our service is going to be all but forgotten. And so, in part, this is about commemorating the service, the sacrifice, but also commemorating the achievements. Because when we tend to think about Afghanistan these days, we look at it through inevitably a pretty bleak lens. You know, what's going on in Afghanistan at the moment, particularly for women and minorities, is pretty appalling. The fall of Kabul, you know, the end of the campaign, was not what most of us who served there expected or wanted. We wanted to build a better future for Afghanistan. And so there's a lot of conflicted feelings about service in Afghanistan and the campaign. Individual charities can help, you know, mental health charities, charities like Combat Stress can focus on a particular thing. But to represent the whole of the community, to be able to tell the story of what they did, to be able to educate parliamentarians, the public, the media about what happened in that campaign, why we were there, and essentially to celebrate what those 150,000 veterans did. Because, you know, this campaign did not end as we wanted, but Afghanistan is unrecognizable now from what it was when we first deployed there. There is no going back to pre-9/11 Afghanistan. And though it's grim for women in particular, we can look back at what we achieved in that campaign with a lot of pride.
You say that there's improvement in the country, and I don't doubt your judgment on that. It's more about the headline, the people you are fighting, the Taliban, are in control. Is that hard for veterans to hold in their heads and inside them a feeling of, you know, that sacrifice and service being worth it, if you like, when what they were fighting so hard to prevent has come to pass?
I am frustrated. For a long time, I was angry about the outcome of the campaign because although I think, you know, we certainly made mistakes at every level in that campaign, including at my level and below that, we did some things at the strategic, at the political level in that campaign that we could have done a great deal better. So I think we missed a huge opportunity at the start of this campaign, once we'd achieved the initial goals, which was to overthrow that brutal Taliban regime, to not do much more to build a political future by recognizing that the Taliban would have to play a part in it. And by completely excluding them and isolating them, we essentially shaped a future for Afghanistan that meant that the only way the Taliban could come back was by force rather than operating within a constitutional system. And then I regret the end of the campaign. Not only how it played out, but for me personally, I think that I thought that from 2015 onwards, when we stopped combat operations, we were keeping Afghanistan, we were buying time for Afghanistan to grow its own capacity for an extraordinary low level of effort. There were no casualties. We were expending very little blood, very little treasure relative to what we were doing before, and we were buying time for the Afghans to shape their own future. And by announcing an end date, by telling the Taliban that we were going to leave, by negotiating directly with the Taliban over the heads of the Afghan government, we essentially sowed the seeds of failure. And we shouldn't be surprised by the outcome of what happened. Many of us were predicting it, and many of us were saying, no, we can keep this going. We can achieve those objectives just with some strategic patience and minimal effort. So those are the regrets that I have. I can't imagine being a mother, a father, a brother, or a sister, or a wife who either had a loved one who was critically injured or killed in Afghanistan, and then thinking that their sacrifice, that all of that love you put into that life would be forgotten. And so we're doing it for ourselves, those of us who served there, but also because it matters to all of us that the 457 soldiers, sailors, aviators that we lost in Afghanistan would ever be forgotten. And we owe it to them to make sure they're not.
Thanks for watching. For more from BFBS Forces News, like and subscribe to our channel.